and welcome to the EU regional heats for the Ferrari Esports Series 2023.
Yes, we've already seen our 11 drivers from the APAC region take the checkered flag, but now we need to find 12 drivers from the EU to take on that final challenge.
Yes, that's right, Mike. 24 will turn into 12 today as our drivers try to master the Hungaroring and then get their sweet little tasty spot in that grand final in Misano.
Yes, but we can't do it alone. We need our resident analyst, Matt Gallagher. Give him a round of applause.
Get in, Gallagher.
Thank you very much.
Boom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom indeed.
Boom indeed.
It's stepping up now for the EU.
Yeah. Pressure's on, right?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Drivers will be eliminated today. And they will have that pressure on their shoulders. It's going to be interesting because EU's the one I've been hyping up, probably the highest quality. So let's see what's in store today.
Yeah, the Hungaroring's a tricky circuit, though, right? There's a lot of kind of low-speed corners that might tempt you into an overtake, but you've got to be precise.
Yeah, Monaco without walls is Hungary. It is a very difficult track, one with which it's a unique challenge, I think, especially in sort of GT cars. It's you've got turn one is definitely the best opportunity for overtaking, but yeah, you're going to need to put the laps in to be mastering this circuit.
Going to get double stuff, double spicy middle pack.
Double spicy middle pack for that crucial 6th place. That's the key, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. It's going to be interesting because it is so tightly contested in this region that 6th place is going to be contested over today. There's going to be plenty of drivers that are actually going to be quite disappointed if they aren't able to deliver because, yeah, it's tight.
Well, before we head into the first of our 2 races at the Hungaroring today, let's check out the circuit itself in our track guide.
Welcome to the Hungaroring, a technical masterpiece in the heart of Budapest, Hungary. This circuit may look deceptively simple, but mastering it requires finesse and precision. At the first turn, approach it with controlled aggression. Brake late, but not too late, and aim for the apex. We then head downhill to the intimidating turn 3, 180-degree left, which is off camber and easily creates mistakes. As we come to the end of the track, turns 10, 11, 12 and 13 are easily the most fun part of the course, bringing together a series of high-speed left and right turns where it's all too easy to overcook things. Remember, the Hungaroring demands consistency and technique. Brake early, accelerate smoothly, and keep a watchful eye on your racing line. Success here isn't about raw power, it's about finesse and control.
Plenty to think about. Matt, if you're approaching this race, what would your tips be?
Well, EU is highly contested, so I think there's going to have to be some elbows out in this one. If you're losing positions at the start, it might well be quite difficult to actually make those positions back up. Turn 1, lap 1 is going to be interesting. There's a lot of runoff, so if you see an incident, I would suggest just using some of that and staying in contention. Turn 1 is pretty much the real only overtaking opportunity. You want to be getting the best run out of that final corner to then just be sending one to the inside. I think there's going to be a few dive bombs into there. That's what I'm predicting.
People describe it as a bit like a go-kart track, right? It's very tight, very narrow. Single file through most of this race, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be just measuring and making sure when you do go for a move, it's on. Because I think it's one of those tracks that can be quite frustrating at times where you just can't seem to size up a move. So you're going to have to be very confident on the brakes, I think, and not too much elbows, like just enough, just a little graze. Because the stewards are going to be watching.
And if we've learned anything from the APAC race, no penalties on the first lap, right?
Yeah, don't get a drive-through. Don't get 5-second penalties because it is going to be so close that just getting one of those, you're not going to have that sort of relaxation. Oh, don't worry, it's 20 seconds back. It's not going to be like that in this race.
Awesome. Well, I think it's high time we headed to the track where our casters Luke Crane and Arjuna Kankapati are waiting.
Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the Ferrari Esports Series. Our trip around the world continues through the regions today. It's all about Europe, 2 heats in the regional heats before the finals all get set. My name is Arjuna Kankapati, as ever joined alongside by Luke Crane. Luke, yesterday it was all about the Asia Pacific region. Today we head to the Hungaroring for 2 very interesting 30-minute races. One of the things, Luke, that we're going to be talking about today, we've got 10 drivers entered into the first heat that we're going to be seeing. 6 of them will advance to the regional finals.
Absolutely. You know, it doesn't matter whether you come first or sixth. So race management is going to be absolutely key. Make sure you're in that top 6 early, and then you don't have to look backwards there, really. You can just focus looking forwards, and maybe you can pick up some insurance positions. Meaning, if you're in P6 and you get a freebie up towards P5 or P4, it means there's a couple behind you that are in a bit more of a risk of losing their position. So yeah, just get top 6, make yourself a safe passage through to the next phase of the competition, and all is golden.
This is the second phase of the competition, though. After 2 rounds of online qualifiers, the drivers continue to compete in their regions or building up towards those regional finals in just a week or so's time. But Luke, after qualifiers round on Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione, we have got all the drivers together in the brand new Ferrari 296 for the very first time. But the drivers on Assetto Corsa have to adapt to the challenges that ACC will provide.
Yeah, 100%. But for the most part, if you are at the top end of esports, or you've been running in esports competitions on Assetto Corsa or ACC, you know, you would have done ACC primarily because that's where most of the competitions are. If you get later into a championship, sometimes AC is thrown into the mix. But in terms of the bigger competitions around the world, ACC is really where it's at.
Well, like I said, 2 races today, 6 drivers from each of our heats will advance to the regional finals, and we're only a few minutes away from seeing the action, so let's head over to the Hungaroring. Let's talk about a couple of the drivers that we'll be seeing today. Isaac Gillison will lead us to the green alongside Jeffrey Ritchie. Lining back up in 3rd spot is going to be Mark Hoyer, while in 4th position, Stefano Bonsignori will be the outside of row number 2. On the inside of row 3, Morris Stryker will have David Naj on the outside of row 3, while through what is a rather strong field, going back to the 4th row, Heikki Haitinen as well as Alexandro Bordoai will be on the penultimate row of the grid, and then at the very back with some work to do, Federico Steva as well as Luca Paparusso. 30 minutes thrown up onto the clock, and these drivers are just 1 step away from the regional finals. And then the chance to become the 2023 Ferrari Esports winner. 10 Ferrari 296 GT3 machines out of the final corner, getting gridded up. Isaac Gillison just waiting for the green flag to drop before they'll launch into an 800-meter run into the opening corner. So much drama has been seen here in Formula One. Ferrari's had so much success here in the past. Who will be able to rise to the occasion? Isaac Gillison caught napping slightly and almost 3 wide into the opening corner. Will go at the front. Reno Ritchie's going to pinch Gillison and force the Veloce driver to tuck back into line. But now, with the overspeed, Gillison back alongside, and on the outside on the run into turn number 2. Hoyer's hold on to 3rd, side by side for 4th as well. But it's a tidy getaway through the field, Luke.
Very difficult to keep an overlap round the outside of turn number 2 there. Gillison decides to back out, and Reno Ritchie really forced the issue there and actually put his racing at risk by diving across the front of Isaac Gillison's bumper there. But I think he realizes that Isaac is a very, very experienced campaigner and knows that he will read the situation a lot better than maybe many others in this race. But it's a really good start from Reno Ritchie, and this is also setting a statement towards the next round of this championship. If these two both go through, Reno Ritchie is kind of just let Isaac Gillison know that I've got the pace to beat you, I've got the ability to overtake you. So yeah, first blood here to Reno Ritchie.
We'll talk more about the regional finals, how the judging criterion scoring will work to crown our champion in a few moments time later in this race. But as we head towards the final sector, braking zone for turn 12, it's a short 400-meter run before you're back onto the brakes here. It's Reno Ritchie from Gillison. No one really separated out. 10 cars still running in line as we complete 1 trip around the 4.4-kilometer Hungaroring. It's Reno Ritchie that took advantage on the start to really pinch Gillison, and like Luke mentioned, took his race maybe into a bit of jeopardy, but everyone playing safe, everyone realizing there's a long way to go, and out of the final corner, some momentum building. Bonsignori is going to try and go up to 3rd.
First time we've seen it, really. Some bite, some aggression from our drivers. Love to see it. And again, it just means that the pressure is ramping up. So we see a potential move there made by Naj on Stryker. Stryker, though, is a little bit too far ahead. And Naj should have been a little bit cleverer there, I think. And maybe, as I said at the start of this, look to set up the move down towards turn number 2, opposed to losing time through turn number 1. Isaac Gillison, by the way, stalking Reno Ritchie at the front end here. We can see just a little bit further up the road. Stryker now with a bit of a gap to work with from Nagy behind. We're on board now with Hoyer. Hoyer's got Bonsignore, who's maybe my favourite name to say so far in this championship, in P4 as it stands. But there's no real gaps forming apart from P9 to P10, but that's less than a second, so everybody still really close here at the Hungaroring.
Yeah, I think the place that we're going to really be keeping an eye out is 6th position, the cutoff line to make it through. It's the Hungarian David Nagy who currently sits in that spot, and will be trying to get past Maurice Stryker, but it's all in through this middle sector where you're just trying to keep your tires underneath you, not run too wide, and potentially get dinged for track limits over the course of 30 minutes. It's now, of course, on this run out of turn 11 as well, where so often you'll see drivers pushing out too wide. GT3 machines are nimble, yes, but they are very much limited by the fact that they are sports cars rather than open wheel machines that maybe people are more used to seeing around a track like this. You'll see these drivers really making the most of the driver aids, the ABS, the traction control to just get the most out of these cars as well. Fastest lap on lap 1, of course, went to Reno Ritchie on the 2nd lap, as expected. Isaac Gillison stalking the race leader.
Yeah, you can see they're faking a move up the inside towards turn number 1, trying to force Reno Ritchie to go defensive, and then, of course, look to make a move down towards turn number 2. But Reno Ritchie did not take the bait and ultimately stays in P1. The top 5 are kind of starting to break away a little bit here. Nagy, though, under pressure from Borodai. So remember, the top 6 qualify, and Borodai in P7 right now just needs to be patient, wait for a mistake to happen. He doesn't need to force the issue, and I would say until at least 10 minutes to go. So for the next 15 minutes, just keep yourself, within arm's length of the car in front. Maybe try and get a bit closer so you can force a mistake, but don't try and send anything and lose a load of time. Gillison there running out of traction, actually. So did Reno Ritchie. You've got to be careful with track limits around the Hungaroring. It's very easy to get all of your warnings and then get yourself a drive-through, and that will be you out of the championship as a whole. But Reno Ritchie, as it stands, maybe not the quickest of these two drivers, still holding firm nicely.
And this is a track where you can run wide, even though there is grass for a lot of the runoffs. There is also plenty of tarmac as well. Modernized for Formula One over the years, of course, mentioned some of the changes that we've seen to turn 1 and its configuration. From up above, you can see inside of the top 6 there are the gaps building. Bonsignore has lost some ground to Hoyer up in 3rd. David Nagy is still on the back of Stryker, and behind them, those on the outside looking in continue to try and find their way on forward. If I'm Nagy in that 6th spot, I'm not comfortable right now, and I would want to potentially try and get in front of Stryker and see if I'm faster, Luke. 30 minutes sounds like a lot of time, but blink and we'll be seeing the checkered flag before you know it.
100%, but on the flip side, if you try and make a move around Hungaroring, you will lose a load of time. Actually, there's a mistake then from Nagy. That opens the door up for Borodai, and Borodai down towards turn number 2. Will he be close enough to take advantage here? This is brilliant then for Stryker. Stryker's going to be, Nagy, he's going to be able to just drive away. But yeah, Borodai did look to make a move, and he spun.
Oh.
Well, Borodai spun. So that's now going to put Heitinen, I believe, into P8, and I think maybe Streva has actually got ahead of both of them. So I'm wondering if there might be some contact. Also, Isaac Gillison is now in the lead of this race.
Yeah, so swap around at the front, and it came through the opening sector where traditionally you don't see too many moves after turns 1 and 2, but Gillison takes advantage. Veloce's number 2 machine now tries to break away at the very front. Reno Ritchie right on. Now the charge of Mark Hoyer, Bonsignore's closed as well. I wonder if there was a mistake up towards the front, and we can confirm, by the way, that Borodai, with that little mistake, has dropped down to the tail end of the field, but crucially, Luke, has not lost too much ground.
Yeah, but I still think Borodai's really, the architect of his making there, or of the mistake, because he tried to make a move down in towards turn number 1, gone run a little bit deep, and then was under some severe pressure from Heitinen. I'm not sure whether there was some contact or not, but he didn't need to be in that situation. Just needed to be a bit more patient. The real winner out of this is Nagy. He's now P6, comfortably in P6, nothing really to be too worried about behind, and actually looking to move forward in this race. Borodai now, you've 23 minutes to go. How quick this field is, how consistent this field is. Almost saying this race is over, surely.
I think that's the problem. Look at that. Best time for Naj is a 1:43.8. Last time was only a 10th and a half off that. It's forced to the outside as Striker goes very defensive in through the opening corner. That will compromise that blue 296 in towards turn 2, but a Hungarian not going to be able to take advantage. Gap back to Stava has actually shrunk down to less than a second, so there is definitely still some pressure to be focused on. There is another driver still in the mix. Did talk briefly about how we have a unique point system coming up for the regional final in order to crown our 2023 Ferrari Esports champion. Each of the drivers in the region is going to be competing against one another. They'll be scoring points in those races. That is combined with judges, Luke, who will be working through data to figure out which driver is the quickest, is the most complete driver overall, and from that, we will crown our champion.
As long as they're not judging us, Arjuna, that's all I'm worried about. So as long as we're in the clear, we can just continue to commentate. That's golden. But yeah, I think it's a nice, unique way of doing things. There's some experts on the panel, and Matt Gallagher. So yeah, I'm not sure he's part of the voting. I'm just throwing him under the bus a little bit there. But yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Can't wait to see what the studio has to say about that little comment. 1.3 seconds up towards the front already. Isaac Gillison's taken advantage of maybe a mistake to break away. And Reno Ritchie, look at how much closer Hoyer gets through the final corner than anyone that we've seen so far. Dirty air means he'll drop back slightly coming towards the line. But you predicted Isaac Gillison would be the one seeing the checkered flag first. He's proving that in the early stages, he's managing the tires the best and now starting to stretch his legs.
Yeah, Reno Ritchie may have just hurt himself a little bit by being as aggressive as he was at the start. Don't get me wrong, I think everybody takes that option at the start of the race to get ahead of someone like Isaac Gillison. So yeah, I'm certainly doing exactly the same. But as soon as Isaac Gillison's got clear air, he just didn't panic, did he? He waited for a mistake and got himself up into the lead of the race and hasn't really looked back since, which is kind of what we expected. So I think that, for moving forward in this championship, everybody's got to be looking at Gillison right now and thinking, yeah, we have to at least get ahead of him. We cannot afford to give him clear air because he's a very, very talented driver.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's going to be curious how we get on in the second heat. We've got another race of 30 minutes coming up. Second group of drivers get their chance. We'll see what their speed is like. And, of course, the top 6 drivers from each of those will be fighting in the regional finals. Bonsignori's tucked up behind Hoyer and Reno Ritchie, but still inside of that 5th, 6th, and 7th battle. Stava's not really too much closer to the Hungarian of David Naj, with 10 minutes now complete, Luke, in this first heat in this European region.
I love that. As soon as you say he's not getting any closer, he took 3/10 out literally as you stopped talking. Just half a second now, Stava behind Naj. That's just classic being a commentator. Things change super, super quickly. But yeah, Streva has to learn from what Borodai did. Borodai tried to make the move, tried to force something down towards turn number 1, and ultimately, and again, not saying the incident was his fault, but put himself in a position where he's having to defend from the cars behind due to being so aggressive in towards turn number 1. Instead of waiting for a mistake to Steva, it's got plenty of time. We're just under the 20-minute mark, which is still a long, long time in this race. And just wait for something to happen. Wait for a mistake to potentially happen. And also, you might think Naj is going to start to go towards Striker and think, if you're slowing me down here, Striker, I've got to get ahead of you. So again, if they start battling, is there any pieces you can pick up? So Steva just needs to be very clever here.
Fastest lap last time by for the number 4 as we wrap out of turn 2. 660 meters on throttle before you flick it to the left, cresting up in towards the second sector here at turn number 4. It is one of the most intense corners I feel in Formula One, and I truly mean that. It is one of those corners where just the way the elevation rises up into there, it's a blind left-hand flick, so much commitment, and in this modern era of Formula One with so much downforce as well, the commitment that the drivers have, so significant. You said you love this track, Luke, but it's not a track that traditionally that we would see too much GT3 racing at. Yes, of course, these drivers will have plenty of experience here, but it's one of those tracks as well that because you don't have the ability to maybe make passes as easily, you've got to be so much better at applying pressure over the course of minutes as Stava gets a little bit of a moment on the curb.
Yeah, you've got to be using tactics. You've got to be, have a plan going into these races of how you're going to be able to manage it. because you know it's going to be very, very difficult to make any kind of overtake. It's an easy track to defend. But ultimately, you know, a car defending is going to be slower through the corners and on the exit of the corners. So there are opportunities there if you're really, really patient. If you're not, then it's just going to become a bit of a stalemate. We've already seen Gillison make an overtake. We've seen a couple of overtakes in the mid-pack here, so it's definitely on. But it's just all about playing that patient game.
17 minutes still to go. These drivers will have the recognition that Borderai has dived down to the lane. No pit stops expected in this race, which also takes the ability to use the pit stop as a way to jump another driver away from you. And now Heitinen has gotten a penalty, I would assume, for pushing the limits of the track potentially. And that's going to mean that these drivers, 5th, 6th and 7th, know that they're a little bit more comfortable compared to those behind. Davinage made a little bit of a mistake there, went a little bit deep. There's the driver with the 5-second penalty.
Yeah, it's a drive-through penalty if you do track limits, so that's been given by somebody, the 5-second penalty. So he's done something naughty. I wonder, he must have had contact with Borderai. That's why the penalty's been given out. Because, yeah, time penalties are given by the admin or steward. So, yeah, naughty.
And it's also gone up as grey on the left-hand side rather than the red. That should have been my second indication that something was different about that penalty. Staver will know now that there's a bit more time with which to work forward. That gap behind just growing. Paparusso's going to be able to cycle on forward up to 8th as a result. We'll hope to take advantage of maybe misfortunes of those in front. Out of the final corner once again, looking rearwards from the driver on the bubble. Davinage on the power. Tires looking rather healthy underneath him. Rear end not squirming around as they power onto this main straightaway. And no DRS in GT3 machines either, so you're not going to get that much of a help in a straight line.
No, certainly not. But I'm very impressed with Nage's performance here because it has been patient. He hasn't looked to try and do anything too crazy. That's not giving an opportunity to Staver or indeed Borderai, who was, you know, racing behind him previously as well. So I think, you know, he's managing the race. I said at the start of the broadcast, right? I said that they're, you know, if you can manage your race in the top 6, you're going to be golden. You don't need to be worried about finishing in P1. So Nage is absolutely doing that right now and reaping the rewards. But, you know, he is only one mistake away from losing that position as well.
Confirmation has come through from race control. 5-second time penalty for avoidable contact for Heikki Heitinen. And so likely to drop in behind Paparusso. Through the chicane, Nage closes up under the brakes and then accordions back out under power. These three drivers separated by less than a second, and Staver's the closest that he's ever been halfway through this 30-minute heat number 1. I feel like with the gap growing up towards Bonsignori, Striker losing ground steadily over the last couple of laps. At some point, the pressure's going to build, and a pass will have to be attempted, whether it's for 5th or whether it's for 6th.
Yeah, well, you have to. If you want to qualify for the next phase, you want to be in that top 6. There's no two ways about it. We've also had a warning for moving whilst in the braking zone for car 5 on lap number 4. So Reno Ritchie, that would have been a battle with Isaac Gillison. It's not really mattered, has it? Gillison managed to get that position. But this is the battle then. Top 6 go through. We're on board with Striker. We're looking back then at David Nagy, who's currently in 6th position. Then it's 0.4 of a second back to Staver. Staver, we've seen win a race so far in this championship, looking to just try and get into that top 6. But yeah, this is perfectly poised here. And I'll tell you what, Staver's got to run down towards turn 2.
And the red Scarlet Machine of Nage in 6th position covers the inside, then goes deep under the brakes out of turn 2. But allows him to get onto the power nice and early, and it's a momentum that you carry up in towards the 2nd sector. This is, of course, going to be something where, as tires continue to go, the Staver potentially have the benefit of not having pushed the tires as hard in the first stint. Now he pushes a bit too deep in through turn 5. They're all making mistakes, but at different points on the track. Isaac Gillison, by the way, has extended the margin up towards the front. Just want to keep an eye on that as Staver clambers over the curb. It's 2.3 seconds. Back to Reno Ritchie now.
Yeah, it certainly is. And again, it's just all about managing that position. You know, it's nice to get a race win. It doesn't really matter. But I think Gillison will do everything in his power to try and stay in that position. This is the battle. This is very intriguing here because I just saw Naj make almost a meal of sector number 1, and then to reciprocate, Staver did exactly the same in sector number 2. So they're kind of trading mistakes right now. Striker is the cork in the bottle, which keeps this very, very interesting indeed. And there is a world right now where Striker does go P7 and loses 2 positions, and this is a mistake there from Naji. Can Staver set up a move down towards turn number 1? He's not as close as he was last time round, but if you're patient, once again, patience is the word of the day. Down towards 1, set it up potentially down towards turn number 2, but there's still plenty of time to make this move. 12.5 minutes to go.
Staver's only 4/10 off the best lap, so it's not even like Striker's that much slower than the times that they were doing earlier. It's just, I think, more consistent from those up towards the front on the longer run. That's something to keep in mind moving forward, the ability to keep these Pirelli tires underneath you over the course of pushing as hard as you can, even for just 30 minutes. Once again, flick it up through turn 4 onto the brakes, carry it through the right-hander, and it's a long right-hander as well, waiting for the back end to settle as you try to demand more and more power continuously from the turbocharged engine. So I'm a little bit more tame for all 3 of the cars through the chicane. They're all looking a little bit more steady on this lap, but that was the mistake from Davin Naj to open the door for Staver to get that little bit closer, now within 2 car lengths.
Absolutely, and this is another key part of the circuit, is we actually see a massive run wide from Staver. That's going to render this opportunity useless. It's gone. Unfortunately, you've got to try and get through turn 10 and 11 behind that dirty air, still close down towards turn number 12. Apart from turn 1, it's the harshest braking zone. And she's sliding around that rear now is Staver. Staver maybe has pushed a little bit too hard on this lap. This would be brilliant for Naji in that rearview mirror. He'll be looking, thinking, yeah, there's an opportunity now to just drive away, potentially make a move on Striker if it does present itself. But yeah, it's Staver. It looks like he might have pushed a little bit too hard.
Tires need to cool down. You get a live tire readout in Assetto Corsa Competizione, as many real GT3 cars do nowadays as well. He'll understand what he needs to do to bring the tires back into their optimal window. Rino Ricci has brought the gap back down at the front. Gilson's not having it all his own way, and Striker's running the perfect defensive race right now. Not getting too spooked, not getting too scared, running his rhythm, running his lines, and not making any mistakes just yet.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, that's all you need to do. Again, similar to Gillison, race management, although Gillison's lost about 0.8 of a second from the biggest gap that they had so far. So I'm wondering now if he's pushed too hard. And it is a high deg circuit. So yeah, it is a part of the strategy. Make sure you get to the end and have something to work with in terms of either attacking or defending. But right now, Gillison looking maybe a little bit under pressure. Striker still holding firm. You know, there's 2 seconds behind Bonsignore, so Bonsignore's golden. The top 4 are all golden as it stands. And it was 0.8 of a second between 7th and 6th, but it is definitely not that now. Once it is 0.4 now. So it looks like Staver has figured it out, and he is closing ever so slightly in towards those final couple of corners. This is going to be box office in the next 9 minutes.
Yeah, they are just trading mistakes in some ways right now. And there's almost one from Staver, pushes out a little bit too wide, trying to get onto the power too early. And now Striker runs a little bit too wide out of the final corner, wraps around onto the almost 900-meter main straight, and now feeding the draft to a couple of cars behind, trying to hunt down. Striker still comfortably in that 5th position and into the braking zone. Not going to have to defend just yet, but you say box office stuff. I almost wonder if Striker's going to be the camera car and we're going to be watching the fight for 6th behind him.
Well, the last thing right now that Naj needs is Striker to make a mistake, really. Oh, well, I'll tell you what, it's Naj that makes a mistake then. As we come through turn number 2, he is going to recover, but will run wide out of 3. And, you know, this is directly coming from Striker making a mistake. This is what I'm trying to point out. You kind of just want Striker to drive away, and then you could defend up against Staver, make it a 1v1, you know, the ball's in your court, you can figure things out. But if Striker makes a mistake, you're going to get slowed down, and ultimately, you are then at risk from Staver. So 8 minutes to go. All of these cars seem to be struggling with their tyre wear now at the later stages of this race. Again, box office stuff for sure.
Staver right on the case now of not just Naj, but Striker once again. Just look at the lateral load that they're putting into the car. And as frequently as David is making mistakes, he always then finds the speed to be able to close right back up to the back of Striker. So keep that in mind. 8 minutes to go. Striker continues to be a cork in the bottle, yes, but in a way that maybe David has enough speed to close, but not enough speed to pass. Once more, towards the line they will go. 7 and a bit minutes to run. A bit wide goes the 3. And David is going to get a good run onto the main straight once again.
Yeah, it's very, very close between them. And right now, if I'm Naj, I am just hoping that there's no more mistakes from Striker here, because if he gets an opportunity to make an overtake, it needs to be clean, it needs to be concise. He doesn't want it to be mixy and take a couple of corners, because that brings Staver right into play. But right now, heading down towards turn number 2, Naji is very close to Striker. Striker in that blue car down towards turn number 2. If you run wide out here, it will just continue to shift your car out wide further and further and further, hurting your tyres because of the camber of the circuit. It's like a downhill slope. Now we're heading up the hill then towards turn number 4. It is as close as ever. We've seen Staver get really close actually towards turn number 5, but ultimately run wide and make a mistake. He's not that close this time round. Is he going to be able to hug that inside line? He is a little bit better actually. Not perfect, but now starting to maybe struggle. But the gap between 5th and 6th is very, very close indeed. Naji doesn't want to make an overtake, doesn't need to make an overtake, but if he's going to get held up so much, it just gives Staver almost a free opportunity to send it somewhere.
And once again, Staver's been able to close. Oh, this is tense right now. 3 drivers battling to advance, 1 will miss out. Through that crucial turn 11, trying not to run too wide as Staver. We've seen him do it once before. Track limit violations are not something we want to see come into play. Towards the front, it's steady. Gillison, Reno Ritchie, 1.5+ seconds between the two of them. Less than that between these 3 machines. Striker is running a slightly different line than both Davinage and Federico Staver through that final corner, but it seems to be working just enough for him to have enough margin into turn 1.
Yep, if you get across the line in 5.5 minutes time and it still worked, then, well, the plan was perfect, right? But now this is the time people are going to start to strike. The patience will wear very thin. Mistake there from Staver. Looks like he went in deep, very similarly to what we saw earlier on in this race from P7. Again, sort of remembering the names, very, very tough at this stage. But you can't afford to be losing a couple of tenths here or indeed overheating those tyres, because it's now or never. You've got, what, 3 laps remaining of this race? And if you're P7, this is your journey over.
Mark Hoyer as well as Stefano Bonsignori will be fighting for 3rd position potentially, as number 6 seems to have lost some speed in the later stages of this race. Staver not making that mistake that we've seen so frequently from him through turn 5, but it's a little bit further behind these 2 in the middle sector than he would like. We're in towards the final 3 or 4 laps of the race, and you said that Davinage won't want to make a move if he doesn't have to. I feel like right now, commentator's curse aside, he won't have to. We'll have to wait and see. Federico Staver's had to really push the tires, Luke, and I wonder what he's still got left underneath him to be able to fight with.
Yeah, and it's kind of come from nothing moves. He's been a bit too far back when he's tried to sort of send it. Not send it, he's not sending one up the inside and taking anyone out, but he's tried to kind of force a mistake from the car in front by, you know, just braking a little bit later, and it's cost him here. It really has cost him. I'm not sure if he's going to catch up with 4 minutes to go. But if Striker keeps struggling here, that opportunity might open itself up here. So I'm not sure Staver's got the absolute pace at this stage of the race now to catch up, as they actually now start to catch up to Bonsignore. But is there still a potential mistake in the offering? It looks like everyone's struggling here. Tyre wear is a massive factor, isn't it? Everybody's just significantly slowed down from their fastest pace. And yeah, we're seeing people in 3rd and 4th now really starting to struggle.
Yeah, they are closing on Bonsignore, mostly because Mark Hoyer is really struggling, has lost another second in the last lap to Reno Ritchie, who has also lost about half a second to Isaac Gillison, who is towering tall up towards the front right now, looking rearwards from 4th spot, now focusing the attention up towards 3rd. Look at the lines that they run into the chicane, really trying to maximize the track, clambering over the curbs at every possible opportunity. They are running on the limits in every possible sense. Davenage still in that 6th spot. You can see Staver's lost now a bit more ground, 1.3 off the back of 6th position, with now what will be 2 laps left to close and to try and fight his way into the regional finals.
It's as simple as this for Nagy. It is just do not make a move. You don't need to. Unless Striker, has an absolute mare through a corner, you've just got nothing to be worried about now. So just keep your position, hold on to that top 6, and all is good. If you're Staver right now, you've got to hope that there's something does go down between these two, because ultimately you are not catching up now. 9/10 of a second in 2 laps. That means you've got to be half a second faster, plus an overtake, which is going to cost you maybe 1 to 1.2 seconds in a lap. So it needs to be effectively 2 seconds faster over the next 2 laps. Almost impossible. So yeah, that tyre degradation has had a significant negative effect on Staver's pace at this stage of the race, as Nagy then runs a little bit deep into turn number 1. It looked like he might be trying to open up turn 1 to be quicker on the exit, but actually the tyres have not allowed that. Gillison, he was being caught up midway through this race. It looks like he was just managing the tyres, so he's got that all figured out nicely. Reno Ritchie, who we saw get into the lead of this race, we know isn't going to be scared to make a move at any point if he gets the opportunity. He's loving P2 right now. Hoyer dropped off a little bit, and Bonsignore now catching up to him, but those 3rd and 4th, they haven't really been troubled throughout this race. But yeah, this battle, 5th, 6th, 7th has been brilliant from start to finish. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and of course, Isaac Gillison, a lot of people will recognize that name, part of the Veloce Esports team, but Jeffrey Miguel Reno Ritchie, strong driver on Assetto Corsa in his own right. So definitely one to keep an eye on, I think, moving forward. Someone that we've seen competing in various SRO esports competitions. And I mentioned Isaac Gillison, towering, tall at the front of the field. Say that quite literally. He is 2 meters tall, 6'6". That's definitely taller than most sim racers. It's taller than me and Luke, which is a bit of a surprise, Luke. There's not many sim racers that are taller than the both of us.
No, we are pretty tall human beings. You're a little bit taller than me. We've never met, but I think you're taller than me. But yeah, do you know what, actually, a fun fact, he had to turn down a real drive this year because he's too tall. That is a fact. He had to turn it down because he was not allowed to go. It's a radical car.
Yes, was meant to be commentating on him this weekend, but yeah, that opportunity was not meant to be. Staver's closed. You heard it on the race director radio. We're on the final lap of the race. He's within striking distance, but it's going to take something special. Here's the final lap. 3 drivers, 2 advance, 1 leaves the 2023 Ferrari Esports Series.
It is as simple as that then. 2 of these 3 cars will make it through as Nagy, well, makes a mistake then towards turn number 2, and that is going to open up an opportunity for Staver to maybe have a run up towards through 3 and up towards 4. As again, another mistake there from Nagy, and now we've got this blind left-hand corner for these drivers before they head through the very cambered right-hand hairpin. Can Staver force the issue? Can he potentially get himself in that top 6?
Into the chicane. This is where Staver's been pretty good and close that margin down. It will all be about whether Striker is going to be a little bit slow. Once again, the black 296 closes that margin, and the Hungarian Davenage is going to feel the pressure. Out of turn 9, in towards 10. Gap builds once more. Staver went a little too aggressive, a little too early.
Yeah, he has just a little bit. I'm not sure he's going to have a chance here unless Nagy makes a mistake under the pressure from Staver. I'm not sure it's going to be quite work out. I guess there's an opportunity into the final corner because you have to take it out wide on entry, and I believe Nagy's going to have to go very defensive. Isaac Gillison is about to come around the final corner, and well, Arjuna, take the checkered flag.
6 advance to the regional finals. It's Isaac Gillison joined by Jeffrey Reno Ritchie, Mark Hoyer, Stefano Bonsignore, Maurice Striker, and Davenage, the 6 that will advance. A really interesting first race though here, Luke, at the Hungaroring. And wait, we've still got 1 more to go.
A little bit of spicy sprinkles on your sauce there, Matt. How was that first race for you?
Spicy sprinkles on my sauce.
I mean, the sauce could also just be hot.
It was a great race. Yeah, it was a great race. It was really good. You had a fight for the lead. You had a fight for those final qualification spots as well. It was tense throughout.
Yeah, Gillison in the fight throughout, basically. And a little bit of a clumsy move. I think the most contentious move in the race.
Yeah, so Renault Ritchie obviously took the lead at the beginning, and Gillison wanted to get that back, probably just for pride. Didn't need it for anything else. There wasn't any prizes on the line for P1 in this race. But yeah, it was. He got a warning for that move, did Gillison. But I'm more on the side of it was actually Renault Ritchie's fault, because he goes for the move, does Gillison, and Renault just sort of squeezes in the braking zone all the way to the apex, and then Gillison doesn't really have anywhere to go. So of course there's going to be contact. Thankfully, he only gets away with a warning, does Gillison, but I felt it was the other way. I felt like it was a bit late. Yeah,
Gillison was most of the way alongside. And actually, the first bit of contact was sort of fair game. It was that second bit that ended up sending Renault Ritchie slightly offline. But yeah, Gillison went on, got the win. But behind, there was that massive battle throughout the entire race, pretty much, for that crucial sixth position.
Yeah, three-way fight. Obviously, Staver missed out, and it was one of those, as I kind of mentioned at the top of the show, was around the Hungaroring being quite a frustrating track. It's the fact that that three-way fight just lasted like that for the majority of the race. And Staver, despite all of his best efforts, taking different lines to potentially put his opponents off in front of him, it just didn't work out for him, and then finished a couple of seconds, I think, off in the end. But so frustrating.
I felt particularly sorry for Borodai, who was in 7th place and ended up spinning out and then was not in that fight. Could have made the difference.
Quite an upsetting scene, really, to just see him in the rearview mirror of him just spinning around in the background. Yeah, and his hopes and dreams. Yeah, really quite sad. But yeah, I'm sure he'll come fight back maybe next year. But it was close. But this is the tournament. If you make a mistake, you're out.
Yeah, and this was that the first look at the really top end of the very competitive EU group.
Yeah, and Gillison looking really, really strong. But it wasn't like we maybe saw in APAC, where there was a couple of drivers that were so clear of the field. If you'd picked up a penalty of 5-10 seconds, you might actually have just dropped out of that top 6. So it was a really, as I keep saying, highly contested field, and that's going to mean that Europe are very strong moving into the sort of final stages of this competition.
Yeah, well, we've got our 6, but I want more.
Yeah.
I want more. I don't just
we
want
have
6.
more.
Yeah, we have more. So let's go and check out the second EU race and get 6 more to throw into the mix.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the European Regional Heats. One more race still to go as we return to the Hungaroring. 6 more spots in the regional finals on the line. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside me once again is Luke Crane. And Luke, we've already seen one great race. What have we kind of learned from that? 30 more minutes still left to see.
Well, we've learnt that the tyres go off significantly throughout the race, so whoever manages them the best will be in the best position later on in the race, especially around that bubble position. P7 and P6, top 6 go through. If 7th can hang around and put themselves in a good spot and be able to attack later in the race. So really, that was the key. But getting a really good start is vital, especially at the sharp end.
We did see plenty of close racing, if not plenty of passing. That fight for 5th, 6th and 7th in that first race of the day really did show us plenty of excitement. It was not very easy for some of those drivers to make moves. We saw plenty of mistakes and, like you said, tyre management, especially for Federico Staver, who was really pushing hard at the back trying to get into the top 6. He was really struggling come the end.
Yeah, 100%. And, that's kind of what you've got to force the other drivers into doing. You've got to force them to overextend through corners and hope that you're in a good spot to take advantage later on. I think what was key as well that we saw P5 and P6 not really battle. So once they were in that qualifying position, they didn't really go beyond the limit to open up the door of opportunity for Staver. So again, we're going to see this in the next qualifier, people racing cleverly.
Let's quickly run you down through that qualifying order because we've said it's going to be important. It's how they'll line up. Leonardo Dalcoma will lead us to the green. Alongside him, the Hungarian Gergo Boldi, a touring car specialist to some, but will show us what he can do in a GT3 car. Benjamin Ostrek will be inside of Timo Lehtinen on the second row of the grid, while Christian Barbanera and then Levin Ipek will share row 3. It's going to be Philip Slashki as well as Adrian Kopp that share row 4, while the final driver in this 9-car field, Simon Speth. 3 will miss out. Again, it's just the top 6, Luke, that we're really focused on moving on to the regional final. The green flag flies and Gergo Boldi was hanging back quite a bit. Dalcomo's clear on the run into the opening corner. Can Benjamin Ostrek get to the inside of Gergo Boldi? Almost 3 wide for a moment. Lettinen's poking his nose as they run their way out of turn 1. Ostrek's already cycled his way to 2nd. Gergo Boldi's trying not to be demoted down into 4th spot.
He's going to lose a lot of time here running side by side with Lehtinen as well. And this is a freebie for Ostrek. Ostrek got a great start and actually took full advantage then of Boldy, basically sleeping off the start. Dalcomo, another one who's had a great start here from P1, and with P2 having such a bad start, basically it's been able to just drive away. Yeah, so not good stuff here from Boldy, and this is the kind of mistakes that I was alluding to. That's the only way really Ostrek, Lehtinen, Barbanera have a chance really of upsetting the front two, is if there's some issues. And right off the start, Boldy just struggling to get the car off the line, as we see Lehtinen, run very deep into the chicane. He loses time, nearly takes Boldy out. Barbanera closes up.
Yeah, for a second there, I thought Gergo Boldy's rear end was about to meet the front end of Lehtinen, but somehow we all got through there safely, just with a little bit more gap starting to build. All 9 cars navigate the first 2 sectors safely, flick it to the right out of turn 11, not run too wide. We saw one driver pick up an automated track limit infringement penalty at the end of at the end of the first heat. Got to make sure that you keep your nose clean. Gergo Boldy's going to want to make up for being caught out on the start, but now it's going to be a difficult way to get past Benjamin Ostrek. We saw some of the highlights from the race that he qualified in, which he won at Monza on Assetto Corsa. That's a track where you have to be a little bit more tactical with your defense. This is a track where it's hard to pass anyway.
It certainly is, and this works out perfectly for Dalcomo as well, because he knows that if Ostrek and Boldy battle for that position, he just gets a bit more insurance and being able to just drive away. So yeah, he'll be hoping they do battle for that position, and then he can indeed get pretty much a freebie through to the next stages of this competition. Lehtinen just dropping a bit further back then after that interesting braking into the chicane. We're coming up to it now in about 3 corners time. Has fallen back about 7/10. Barbanera 8/10 further back, and Ipek really challenging Barbanera here for P5. And you got Slasky, who's about 4/10 behind them. So very similarly to what we saw in our first race today, there's 3 cars battling for 5th and 6th position. And I'm wondering if that will continue. We saw early in last race that there were some mistakes that indeed changed that 3 drivers. But I believe we're going to have a similar story in this one.
Philip Slashky won his qualifying race at Silverstone. We were quite impressed over the course of 60 minutes. Going to be interesting to see if he'll be able to work on forward to get past Levin Ipek, who finished that race in 3rd spot. So, by the form book from what we saw in Qualifier 2, we expect that to swap around at some point through the course of this race. Tires are going to be a factor, though. How much are the drivers going to be biding their time? Gergo Boldy once again through the penultimate corner, all over the rear end of Benjamin Ostrek. But for all this pushing, Dalcomo at the front has not pulled away with the same sort of margin that we saw Isaac Gillison do. But really, we've only had 2 laps complete. Fastest lap so far still sits with the man sitting at front.
Yeah, certainly is, and Dalcomo hasn't really had to overexert himself, has he, in terms of using those tyres up, so you imagine he's in a really good spot, whereas Boldy is pushing Ostrek. You've got Lehtinen, who is forcing Boldy to drive in that manner because he is that close behind. But the battle really is 5th, 6th and 7th, isn't it? That's just not, they are not being separated. The gap is not coming up between the 3 drivers. Barbanera just falling off the front 4 a little bit here. So the front 4, they've got that insurance, they've got that time to work with now. So it's all about really just consolidating that, making sure you're there at the end of the race, and then you're good to go through.
The fast track state that we have now, the 2nd quickest for Assetto Corsa Competizione, indicates that the rain didn't necessarily wash away too much of the rubber that's been baked into the track surface. There's still plenty of grip for these drivers to enjoy, but if it does get up to optimum, that will just mean the track gets that little bit grippier and that little bit faster. Looked like Lehtinen dug the right side tires into the gravel working out of the chicane. Hasn't dropped him into what is once again building to be a fight for 5th, 6th and 7th spots. Where have we seen this before?
Yeah, certainly is. Well, I'll tell you what, Barbanera was all over the show then. He's got to defend the inside line. That's made them 2 really, really slow. And look at Lasky. Lasky's going to try and go around the outside of Ipek. It's given him a free opportunity down in towards the penultimate corner. He has the inside line. And I tell you what, Ipek just closed the door there where he didn't really have the right to do so. He's now spun around and he's now dropped down the order. And I tell you what, I think that's all his own doing, really.
Still running, though, so drop to the back, I think, of the 9-car field. Rearwards from Barbanera, you see the margins grown to Slashky, who is now in that 6th spot. inside of a regional final appearance. He's going to have to hold on from those 3 behind, but already 5th on back. That's where the margin's looking to be. It's going to all be about these drivers and how they'll go. 1.3 seconds at the front for Dalcomo. Benjamin Ostrek, excuse me, continuing to prove to be quite frustrating to Gergo Baldi. But all 3 of those drivers, Lehtinen included, I feel pretty comfortable right now, Luke.
Yeah, I just had my head in my hands there for Ipek. I feel so sorry for him, but like, you can't, there's a certain limit where you've got to stop defending. You can't just drive across a car that's on your inside, unfortunately. They're still in the hunt. They're still well in the hunt, actually. So it's not all is lost. Actually, Cott really is the one who's gained the most from that situation. He's now 6/10 behind this group. But there's now maybe, what, 4 cars battling for what is 6th position. We're on board here with Ipek, and you see just how close he is behind, but just a lot more hard work to do. Only had to make 1 overtake previously, now has to make 2 at a minimum. So, yeah, not a good last lap there for Ipek.
And Dirty Air will play its part. Slashki made a bit of a mistake through the chicane, bobbled over the curbs, and so now a little bit closer to Simon Speth than would have been expected. Out into the final sector once more, jumping up towards Gergo Baldi, where you can see Leonardo Dalcomo starting to just stretch the legs, break the toe, and Gergo Baldi trying to cut back in through the final corner, be a bit more aggressive onto the power and build the momentum down 900 meters and try and get to the inside. Not going to be able to do so. Gergo's surely not going to be too aggressive. We've seen him in so many different platforms, so many different competitions. He's seen it all. He's been a part of it all. He's not going to be too inexperienced. Oh. Meanwhile, behind, Ipek up the inside of Simon Speth.
Yeah, up the inside with a little bit of a helping hand there, and I think he's about to be sent again, to be honest. No, he doesn't. So there was a little bit of contact between the 2 of them. We know that there are potential penalties in this race for that. Whether that was over the line, I'm not too sure. I'm going to throw something out there, Arjuna. The weather is changing in the top right-hand corner very quickly indeed. So it said a minute ago that we're going to have sunshine with a bit of cloud for the next 30 minutes. It's now changed to full cloud, and I know once it starts changing quickly, expect it to really change. So I think that there is the potential for the first time for a little bit of wetting today.
We have not seen any rain so far in the 2023 Ferrari Esports Series. Will the skies open up? 22 minutes still left to go. We're not even 10 minutes into this 30-minute dash. Still potentially a pit stop to think about. There's no mandatory pit stop like we had in the qualifiers. This might just be because drivers need to get the intermediate, the wet Pirelli tires onto their cars. Looking from up above, you can see it's still 5th on back, where they are all in somewhat of a train. It's anyone's game in here. No one is out of the mix, including, like you mentioned earlier, Luke, Adrian Cott, who is once again just on the back of the conga line in front.
Yeah, certainly. It is really, really close here. And that's what you expect the further we go in this competition, of course. In the qualifying rounds, there were some races where it was very obvious who the faster driver were and who the slower ones were. But now the further you get into the competition, they're all going to be very much closer. And that's going to be the case even more so when we head to our finals as well. We're on board with Slasky, currently in a really nice position in P6, 8/10 clear of Ipek. I think we've got enough evidence to show that if Ipek gets close enough, there is going to be an absolute send at some point, Arjuna. So I look forward to seeing that.
Definitely. And this is the type of track where you're going to need the sends to get on through. And going side by side, as we saw in the first heat of this regional European region day, was a couple of aggressive sends. Gergo Baldi has a chance to look to the inside into turn 6, but Benjamin Ostrek is just slowly building the frustration here. 2.5 seconds up the road. Lettinen's closing in as well. Gergo Baldi, as I was saying earlier, surely not going to go for it. At some point, he might have no choice.
Yeah, if Lettinen catches up to within half a second, I think there's every reason to suggest that he's going to go for it. But right now, with that 1.6 second buffer, like, he's an experienced campaigner. There's no way he's going to risk his qualification through when, again, the position doesn't matter whether you're P1 or P6, anywhere in between is good enough to go through. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to be taking any risks. The driver who is taking some slight risks here is Slasky. So Slasky and Ipek were on board with at the background there. You've got Barbanero's in the silver Ferrari. Then you've got Slasky, who's going to look to potentially make a move at the inside, but the door closes as quickly as it opened. And once again, it is a three-way battle. And Slasky has just received a 5-second penalty. We're actually we're going to wait for the race director to let us know exactly what that was for. But that is huge. That renders his qualifying position as useless right now. He will drop down, well, to last.
And it helps Barbanera if Slasky doesn't move, which he's not obligated to do. Some separation between fifth and those behind. Here's the onboard perspective, though. Slasky's going to get more contact. Barbanera loses that spot inside the top 6, already dinged by the race director, and now going to be heading back up there for another conversation.
Yeah, nothing worse than seeing someone, you know, square on behind another car and basically just pushing through the corner. That is a stone waller, as they would call it in football. If it's a penalty, that is a penalty there. He's just driven through him, basically. So not only has he got 5 seconds, I would imagine we're about to see that be extended or even maybe upgraded to something like a drive-through. Not good there at all. Slasky holds on to P5, but it won't be for long.
It was the 5-second penalty, by the way, was for drama on lap 3, so going back quite a ways now. But it's all bubbled up and will continue to rumble from here without a shadow of a doubt, looking over the shoulder of the race winner at Silverstone in qualifier 2. You got Ipek, Speth, Cott and Barbanera, who managed to hold on despite the tag, not just to the rear bumper, but then also to the quarter panel as well. Fortunately did not do a full 360 and lose too much ground. Lettinen's runaway, Baldy, Ostrek, Dalcomo, doesn't really matter what's going on up there. There's still 2 spots up for grabs here, and realistically, Ipek and Speth are the 2 to watch.
Yeah, they certainly are. Slasky has to get a 5-second gap now from, you know, P6 or P7, P8 and P9 if he is to continue his pathway through the Ferrari Esports Series 2023. So not good at all. Ipek then 3/10 further back. Ipek will be very happy right now because he knows he's going to move up into P5. So he could even afford to lose 1 position. He's actually been given a nice little bit of insurance there. Speth will also know he doesn't need to make a move right now. They'll see it on their relative that the 5-second penalty has been applied. So no need to push right now. Although Cott being behind them, Cott has a real carrot now. I think he knows that if he gains, you know, 1 position, P7, he's going to qualify through to the finals. So yeah, the real winner of the situation again is Cott, and it's none of his own doing. So is he going to be able to take full advantage of this this gift he's been given?
Ipek made a big mistake out of turn 5, ran very wide, lucky not to lose control of the car. But just showing how much on the edge of grip that these drivers are. Remember, not perfect track conditions, and there is the threat of weather still with almost half this race complete. Once again, diving down onto the brakes into the final sector. It's where we've seen a couple of cars dive a bit too wide and late onto the brakes, but all of the drivers here running themselves on the marks pretty tidily. Barbanera's losing ground to the 4 cars, and so going from being inside of the top 6 to now losing track of the battle, that's going to be frustrating for sure. But if he lets the tires come back underneath him, Luke, there's every chance that these drivers fight and Barbanera's back in the mix.
Yeah, 100%. You know, there's a mistake there from Slasky. Slasky is going to run wide. He's going to indeed give a free opportunity then for Speth to go up to P6. I think you'll find that Slasky's got to hold on to this because he knows he has to get 5 seconds ahead. He's going to just keep his nose in there. Through turn number 2 they come, and it's so difficult if you're on the outside of turn 2 to keep an overlap there. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a move there, so Ipek is going to have to wait. But this just really gives an opportunity to Speth and Cott once again just to keep tabs with these drivers. Barbanera not far away, as you just said, Arjuna, not far away at all. This is genuinely, right now, we've got to take Slasky out of this. 5 seconds, and with the potential of another penalty as well, is enough to render his race done and dusted. That's how close this field is. So right now, it is a battle between, you know, Ipek, Speth, Cott, Barbanera for 2 positions. So there are 2 positions up for grabs with 4 drivers.
Halfway through this race, it's a 50% chance if you're in that field of 4 of making it on forward. The question will be for Slashki, even if there is a second penalty to come, if those 4 drivers fight too much, can the 4 break away? The All Black 296 will be hoping that the mirrors get filled with the sights of side-by-side action. Doesn't seem likely. It seems more likely that Ipek's going to have another chance to try and get on past. It was through turn 1 that Slashki overcommitted a lap ago. Runs a little bit wide, trying to just cut back onto the power a little bit earlier.
Oh.
Running onto the AstroTurf, all the drivers pushing to the limit, but you can just look in terms of lap time. They are 1 second slower than what they were doing at the start. The tires not in their best condition either, and once again, Slashki slightly deep under the brakes.
Ipek is learning each and every corner where he can gain an advantage. He took a completely different line there around the final corner and had a better exit and was a lot closer underneath that rear wing of Slashki. So he's learning each and every lap. But with that, he's dragging the 2 cars behind him along. So Speth and Cott are also in the mix right now. Barbanera just dropping a bit further back. He really does need a bit of a miracle. He needs them all to get involved with each other, which is a distinct possibility, if we're honest, as we see there a massive run wide from Slashki. Ipek just slightly lost the rear going through the blind left-hander. And as we head then towards the chicane at the back end of this circuit, it is... well, anyone's guess who's going to be in that top 6. I think we're pretty solid on Dalcomo, fastest lap of the race as well. Ostrek and Boldy battling here. They don't need to. I think Boldy will be, only making a move if he feels like he's being slowed down significantly. He just needs to stay in a P3 right now. Doesn't need to do anything too silly. Lehtinen in P4 as it stands again. Similar position, all good to go through. Slashki is the one who's going to lose out here again. Loses 5 seconds, would drop him to last in this race, so P9. So Ipek would be promoted into P5. Speth will be moved up into P6. And again, there's then 1.1 second between Cott, Barbanera and Speth battling for that last qualifying position. So with 12 minutes, 30 seconds to go, Arjuna, this is by all means not over.
So that's your rundown through the field. Let's not forget that we've already seen one of the Mirror Esports drivers, David Noj, qualify from the first of the heats today. Gergo Boldy hopes to join as well. This is what we think could be the fight for the final of the qualification spots, and Adrian Cott almost baits overcommitment into turn 1, but Simon Speth able to slow down just in the nick of time, covers the inside line, and doesn't present another opportunity into turn number 2. We've said just how difficult it is to pass at a track like this. It's going to mean that defense like that can be rewarded, but you can already see that Ipek's gained a little bit of ground just through the couple of corners since.
Yeah, 100%. It just don't do anything too crazy at this point in the race, especially if you're Speth. Speth and Ipek, you just need to, you're going to be fine. You're both going to be promoted up into that top 6. Ipek's already there, so don't do anything too crazy. Oh, that's a mistake there from Slashki. Slashki cut the corner there. I'm wondering whether he might be in a little bit of trouble for that as well. He'd probably be on a... oh, well, I'll tell you what, he's just been added another 5 seconds, so that has ended his race. There, 2 incidents that were both stone walls for me, both penalties. And unfortunately, he's going to drop down. So that makes it even more, it makes it even more important for Speth just to not make a mistake. Now, you are going to be promoted into that top 6. You are going to get through, but just don't do anything silly right now. Ipek, well, he's close enough. Does he look to make a move here? He doesn't need to, very similarly to Speth, but I think he's just a bit too close not to at this point.
At this point, I think Slashki as well is just going to dive to pit lane and get out of the way. It's going to mean we can settle it all on track. Ipek and Speth will cycle to 5th and 6th into the spots where they need to be to end this race and to make their way to fight for a chance to join the Scuderia Ferrari Esports team. For Cott, for Barbanera, time is running out. Almost 20 minutes done, 10.5 minutes still left to run. I've got to say, Ipek's looked pretty strong. I wonder if he'll be able to break away now from those behind.
If I'm Cott right now, I'm sat there going, that's a shame. I wish Slashki stayed out, really. Because, with someone who's got 2 penalties, you're sure that they're going to do something. If they're mixing it with 3 or 4 cars, they might overextend if their race is over. They know the race is done, so they're going to just be racing for pride. Like, you want them to cause a bit more of a nuisance, really. Unfortunately, Cott's found himself in a position now where the work has to be done by himself. But, again, at the start of this race, that he would have been aware of that would have been what he had to do. The penalties weren't added before the race, of course. So right now, Cott has got to try and find an overtake on Speth. Ipek in a very comfortable position, could afford to lose one spot and still is going to be golden. Barbanera now hoping these three really do have a ding-dong and he can close up and maybe take advantage of some cars facing the wrong way.
Really like the track that we have chosen in this European region. It's such a technical, demanding challenge. Mount Panorama for the Asia-Pacific region. We'll be heading to Watkins Glen for the Americas region next up. And so I feel like this is one of the happy mediums. Not too much drafting. It's all about the technique, and Gergo Baldi shows that out of the final corner, it's possible to get the rear end stepping away from you, even with traction control trying to help you. Where are we going for the regional finals, you may wonder? Well, at least from what I understand, Misano, which I think is a wonderful track, Luke, to finish up what has been a fantastic 2023 Ferrari Esports Series.
Yeah, plenty of overtaking opportunities there. Very fast, flowy circuit as well. Yeah, I'm massively fond of the circuit, to be honest. It's kind of got the best of everything, has Misano. It's not the most used circuit in the world these days, but yeah, it's nice to get the use out of it for our finals.
And so official confirmation that Slashki has retired, leaves just 8 out there on the track. And we're riding on board up in towards turn 4 as Ipek, as I expected, somewhat starts to just break away. Caught now, only a car length and a half off the back of Simon Speth. 6th position is going to be fun. The blue 296 GT3, that's Simon Speth. The car behind, that's Adrian Cott, the silver/white. It's where different drivers make different speed. They have, of course, all built slightly different setups for this race, Luke, and you can see in this middle Spectre, Simon Speth seems to be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. This is where we want to be. Adrian Cott, this is where the fireworks potentially can happen. He has to make an overtake then. Speth in P6. You've got 7.5 minutes here, Adrian Cott. Can you save your Ferrari Esports Series 2023 life, or is it going to be Speth that will take it? Speth, by the way, is all over the show right now. I think Cott has saved his tyres here. I think Cott is going to be a little bit faster, but it's one thing catching. It's quite another making an overtake.
Absolutely. And with Ipek feeding less and less help to Simon Speth in terms of draft down this main straightaway, one of the best passing opportunities, a 900-meter dash or so. Adrian Cott's going to have a half look, just a little bit different line, just trying to put the pressure on from the Polish driver, but I think that sort of intimidation going to be quite difficult. The German Simon Speth seems quite immune to it for the time being, and this time around, this first sector, Speth looks a little bit more comfortable than he did a lap ago.
That's not the play. You do that if you're a car length behind. You don't try and fake a move from that far back. It's never going to happen. The only way you're making that happen is if you T-bone them off the circuit. So, oh, I tell you what, though, that's a big old slide. So, Speth maybe in a little bit of trouble here himself. But, yeah, if you're caught, you've got to be patient. I know there's only 6 minutes left, and he's made a mistake there as well. Slow on entry. You know, you've got to be looking at Speth in front of thinking he is absolutely struggling with his machinery in front. The tyres are absolutely gone. So, be patient, wait for that opportunity. If you get to the last lap and maybe you have to do something a little bit naughty and hope that it works, you know, no one's gonna have a go at you for that. You've got to take that opportunity on. But right now, you still got to be patient.
They aren't that far off of Ipek. They've managed to close in the last lap or so. Maybe just the battling for 6th a lap or 2 ago cost these two a bit of time, and they've been able to right that wrong. You can see, though, it is still a visual gap, all sliding around on the entry into the final corner. Just a couple of laps with which to run, less than 6 minutes to go, means that they are running out of opportunities to work their way on pass. You can see as well, the lap times almost as quick as the best laps that they've ever run. Tires are going off, but the lap times aren't. It's all about managing the car now and using the driver aids where you can. ABS, traction control, you've got both of them, Luke. You need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, 100%. There's another mistake there from Speth. Will be a little bit faster. Do not create contact right now. That is the last thing you want to be doing, is getting a penalty at the end of this. But I tell you what, this is going to go down to the wire. Speth is really struggling here, Arjuna. I think Cott I think Kott's going to get a freebie opportunity at some point.
Half looks to the inside of turn 5. Speth once again ragged through that opening sector, and the gap back to 7th shrinks into the chicane, clambering over the curbs. Oh, a little bit over rotation there for Adrian Kott onto the grass on the exit, and all that hard work gone. He'll have to close the gap once again.
Yeah, and again, he's just been a little bit overzealous, trying to force the issue a little bit too much. I understand the frustration. You know, you've only got 4 minutes to go. The time will be ticking down really quickly for him, whereas for Speth, it'll be ticking down really slowly. I know that sounds stupid, but that's what happens when you're one position away from getting through and you're in the position to go through. Right now, Speth is just sat there going, Ipek, can you drive half a second a lap faster, please? Do not slow me down. I'm in a great spot right now. I do not want to be held up. I do not want to give Kott an opportunity. I believe we've got 3 laps remaining. Dalcoma would have crossed the line, so I think, yeah, we're not even on the penultimate lap. So still time here for Kott. Again, I think he's got better tyres for sure, but he's got to do all the hard work again of catching back up. Oh, nail-biting stuff.
I think I agree with you. 3 laps is what we have to go. And it's always good when you don't talk about a leader. It means they've been dominant at the front. And the Italian, Leonardo Dalcomo, now almost 9 seconds clear of Benjamin Ostrek in 2nd spot. Gergo Baldi in 3rd, continues to run pretty closely. Out of the downhill right flick, the turn 3, that builds you up in towards the middle sector of the lap. 6th, 7th, and 8th all run. Barbanero's been lost. That little bit of contact may have left him with a little bit of residual damage, Luke. He'll be feeling a little bit frustrated with how his 2023 Ferrari Esports Series has come to an end.
Yeah, I also think that the consistency wasn't there. Like, I think, you know, had the lap time or the raw pace to keep with this group for a little while, but I think consistently these drivers have just keep putting in the laps in, even though they're battling with each other. So Barbanera, you know, has to use his experience. Something I always say to drivers that go out of a competition is, you don't get this opportunity very often to race at this stage of a competition. Doesn't matter who you're racing against. You have to, you know, when it doesn't go right for you, when it's your last day in a championship and you get knocked out, you have to use the experience. You have to, you know, pick it apart and go, what can I take away from that I will not do again next time round? Because ultimately, you know, if you're competing and you're getting to this stage of a championship, you're more than likely going to take part in more series in the future. So yeah, that's what Barbanera has to do from this. You know, it's disappointing, of course. No one wants to go out of a competition, but you've got to try and take as many positives out of it as possible. Right now, the big positive for Speth is that he's now 1.2 seconds clear. 2 laps to go. So now, right now, Kott has to be 6/10 quicker, a lap, plus make an overtake, which is very difficult indeed. I think that one slide he made into that chicane has cost him dearly here. Even though Speth's running wide, he's just got such a nice buffer to work with that I think it's almost impossible now for Kott to make a move unless something drastic happens.
Simon Speth did his fastest lap of the race last time by, so clearly still has some speed. It's the thing about the tires. There's less grip, but there's not less speed. It's one of those things where you've got to just make the most of what you have and drive around the tire that you have. We're on the penultimate lap of the race. We've only got a lap and a half left to run. These drivers have just got to hold on. Simon Speth knows, as the rear end steps out on him there. When we get into the regional finals, as we're determining who's the 2023 Ferrari Esports Series winner, it's not just about getting the results out on track, building the points, but putting together performances that impress the judges. And I've got to say, the struggles a race like this, these are those drives that impress everybody.
Yeah, I can only apologise to people watching at home. I'm making noises I didn't think existed within my system, but yeah, Speth is all over the show. Making a slide there in towards turn 10, and maybe it's just given a carrot for Kott to chase. He is not close enough to make a move, but can you get within half a second? Can you put an element of doubt in Speth's mind? That's what it's going to take. There's no way you're going to make an overtake on raw pace now. It is all about putting that pressure on Speth to force him wide. We saw it on this lap where he ran wide at turn number 1 and now turn number 10. So it's all onto this final lap of the race. Kott versus Speth, who will be our final European qualifier.
And after putting in a very quick lap time, next time by, Speth's almost 7/10 off that. So you can see the struggles that we saw represented in loss and lap time as well. Clock hit 0, 30 minutes of racing done, and now no rain, but what has been a very dark second race at the Hungaroring in terms of the cloud condition and the conditions the drivers have been navigating through. Simon Speth has just got to hold on. As much as Adrian Cott is closing, there aren't many passing opportunities to Klum. After this, after the chicane, surely after running through the S's, Speth should feel somewhat comfortable. Not as comfortable as Del Como at the front, though.
I'll tell you what, Ipek was maybe half an inch away from throwing it all away there out of turn 4. He nearly ran completely over the curb there, and that would have just sent his car off into an oblivion. But Arjuna, here we go, end of the race.
Here comes the Italian in the scarlet red. The Ferrari 296, a new challenge for all the drivers. Leonardo Del Como has conquered it the best and almost 10 seconds clear at the front. He'll win the second heat in the regional series for Europe 2023 Ferrari Esports and advance on forward to the regional finals. Benjamin Ostrek grabs second, frustrates Gergo Baldi to the line, but behind them, Timmy Lehtinen, and then, in what was a very close battle to the end, Levin Ipek and Simon Speth do enough to grab the very final spots in the regional final in this European region.
What a race that was, Matt. Massive, massive battles for that final position to get into the finals.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant, wasn't it? It was so tight. Barbanera, oh my God, my heart. that he was fighting so hard, tooth and nail, just to keep. I think it was P5 at the time, and then Slasky have the best of races.
Bit of a menace out there.
Yeah, there was that spin, of course, on IPEC, and then with Barbanera as well. It wasn't horrendous. It was just trying to stick a nose in, obviously knowing the top 6 are going to get through. You had a couple of drivers behind as well that were chomping at the bit to come through as well. So there was that sense of urgency. And Slasky, on a couple of occasions, went a little bit too far, and the stewards were like, no, 5-second penalty. There you go.
It's that controlled aggression thing, right? And if you lose the control bit, all you have is aggression, right? And like you say, there were small moves, just slight touches. But if you hit a car in the wrong spot, it's going round and you're going to cop a penalty.
Exactly, yeah. Barbanera, into turn 2 was just going about his usual day, on the inside line, lovely stuff. And then Slasky, just the slightest of touches on that rear diffuser, and round Barbanera goes. And you did think at that point maybe he can regain himself because he was right just on the back of that pack. But because they were so tightly contested with the lap times they were doing, I think he just pushed a little bit too hard and then was out of contention by the end.
I was super impressed by IPEC and the recovery drive, because it would be so easy when you've been taken out and you've dropped a couple of places, you're out of contention for the final, to let your head drop and to bottle it.
Yeah, IPEC was on a mission, I think, after that. It was almost like he saw red, but, some drivers can see red and then start doing what Slasky did and just keep hitting drivers, but IPEC didn't. Managed to get into that top 6, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of learnings about maybe qualifying slightly better and then not being in that pack.
What I liked with the move on Slasky was very, very clean, almost making a point of making...
This is how you do it.
Yeah, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it was good. Into turn 1, and the cutback was beautiful, sort of played the dummy a little bit, Slasky a little bit late on the brakes, went really wide, and it was, it was a textbook move.
In the end, Slasky obviously got that penalty and was out of contention. And, pace-wise, should have been up there. So it was pure racecraft that cost him.
Yeah, and this is it, right? It's a competition that not only tests your time trial and your hot lapping, but it also tests your racecraft. Clear that Slasky had the pace, but didn't have the racecraft to be able to manage that situation, because it was tense. There was a lot of drivers in that pack all trying to get into the top 6. So Slasky will have learnt a few things, I think.
Well, there you have it, another couple of amazing races, and we now have our 12 drivers from the EU region.
That's right. Congratulations to Isaac Gillison, Jeffrey Reno Ricci, Mark Hoyer, Stefano Bonsignore, Maurice Stryker, David Nagy,
Leonardo Luis Del Calmo, Benjamin Ostrek, Giorgio Baldi, Timmy Lehtinen, Levent IPEC, and Simon Speth.
Congratulations to all of our finalists, as they're going to be heading their way to that grand final very, very soon.
Yes, lots of quality on display. Matt, do you think the Americans are going to be worried about this EU group?
Yeah, I would be. Yeah, the Europeans look really, really quick. Not only that, but there are a lot of drivers that can compete right at the front. I think we saw that with the heats today, and yeah, very exciting to see how they stack up.
Yeah, they'll be bringing their A game with a drive for Ferrari potentially on the table.
Yeah, and you start to wonder, oh, can I actually achieve this? A lot of mental games. It's going to be really interesting.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to you guys at home for watching. We'll be back very, very soon with our race in the Americas.